Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
It is a lot easier to hunt when you are as fast as the guy that the Dogs just got a commitment from this weekend. Jake Rowe, welcome back from the beach. Palmer Toms and Jake Roos joining me this evening. I'm Wes Blankenship. We're going to talk about Chauncey Bowens, that running back that the Dogs flipped from Florida on another really big recruiting visit weekend. So a lot of stones to unturn there. We will get into a little bit of a hypothetical. Florida's getting their Netflix treatment. We're going to look at some Georgia storylines that deserve their own documentary series. But there's one catch. You're not allowed to use Stetson Bennett. And we got some Q&A going from the DawgsHQ Twitter profile all day, all Sunday. Y'all been firing off Qs. We'll try to get you some A's. Guys, let's start with Chauncey Bowens, man. I'm going to try to pull up his huddle right here. Ooh. When I watch this guy, okay, I'll just tell you, full disclosure, I pull up a lot of these guys' huddles because I want y'all to get a little bit of a context and see what they look like. But me personally, I don't really care until I see them do it in college. That's just how I've been wired. When I watch this dude, he looks like he's on fast forward and everybody else is at half or normal speed.
I do think that whole game speed thing is a real deal. I've always, because there are some dudes like Elijah Holyfield, right? I mean, Elijah Holyfield never looks slow, but you watch him run to 40, he runs like a 4.8. But, you see him bounce the ball out to the edge and nobody ever ran him down. And that's something he was good at. I think Chauncey Bowens, listen, he's a 10.8, 800-meter guy. I think it's his personal best, maybe a little bit better than that. I don't think he ran that well this past year. You never know. It could be an injury. Could be, a ton of different reasons. But 10.88 is not bad. It's fast. It's really solid. But that huddle film is a different thing altogether. I mean, right there, it looked like he was just like he just kind of wound up and turned himself loose.
We got to contextualize. This is 10.88 at 205 pounds. I mean, this is a big cat now. This is not some little scat back running around out here. This is a dude that can run you over if he needs to. He looks plenty capable of doing that. But no, I love the Bowens film. Palmer asked me yesterday, Ro, and I'm curious when you have seen this film, the comparison you would make. He mentioned Elijah as a possibility. To me, the guy, and I know he's shorter for sure. Although Chauncey Bowens lists himself at 6'1", I think, 6 foot probably.
No chance.
I saw a little. I think there's, and I'm going back a little here. I'm seeing a little Craig Lumpkin here.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
it's been a long time.
It has
been a long time.
I had never heard that name when you said it.
Oh, come on, Palmer.
Palmer, what year were you born again?
99.
Yeah. I mean, you were 5-6 years old when Craig Lumpkin was patrolling the sidelines for the first time for the Bulldogs. I mean, Craig Lumpkin's freshman year was 2003.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I think Palmer brought it up on the board. Another guy came up was Zamir White.
Mm-hmm.
The high school films aren't really that thing, but I look at his balance and kind of some of the ways that, oh yeah, they got him, no they don't type things. I think he kind of reminds me of him a little bit there.
A post ACL Zamir there. I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's really the only Zamir that folks ever got to see. That's the only Zamir folks got to see in Athens. I mean, this high school tape was just next level. But I don't know. I like him. He's a really good back. And Georgia, listen, this isn't some new deal for Georgia. I mean, this isn't some like, oh man, we just started to like Chauncey Bowens. They've been on him for a good little while now. They've been trying really hard to flip him for Florida. And if you're wondering whether or not they'll take Nate Frazier, don't, because Nate Frazier's still a take. All right, Nate Frazier, and as Lloyd McDonald at Atkinson County High School used to say, all 5'5", 120 pounds of my head football coach. I mean, this Lou Holtz would look like Andre the Giant next to my head football coach. He's a boy dog. That's Nate Frazier. Nate Frazier is the class of this class when it comes to running backs, and Georgia is still all over him. So,
yeah, this was bad news for Florida, and I mean, things aren't going right in a very large scale there. I don't know that there's a lot of people who have a lot of hope for what this season holds for them either. They got DJ Lagway, who's a tremendous talent at quarterback. But Bowens was one of the centerpieces of that class for them. And for Georgia to swoop in and take him is a blow. And listen, one of the key things, and I'm putting this in some notes for tomorrow, Florida's not going away, okay? And I think one of the key things for Bowens was looking at the proven production of Georgia versus the rebuild in Gainesville. And so, Florida could – potentially, I think, over the course of its season, play itself back into some relevance with this one. I know he's solidly committed, and I believe that. And like I said, I think Florida will struggle this year. But if Florida plays well, I think that's going to make this an interesting one. But right now, listen, Georgia with a tremendous ad and a guy that they stayed on for a long, long time, and it paid off. And Georgia looking for 3 in this class. Like you said, don't worry about the Frazier thing. I think Christian Clark's still a name to keep on your board as well. To me, those are the guys that you want to watch at this running back spot. But Chauncey Bowens was a dude that they had circled from the jump and kept on it.
Well, yeah. And I think as you look at the 2 running backs that they've gotten and the ones that they're looking at adding, it really covers a wide variety, a big spectrum of skill sets. I mean, you've got a power back, you've got a speed back, you've got, the do it all kind of guys. And I think that if you're going to take 3 running backs like Georgia's interested in, you want to have different skill sets represented.
I'll tell you this too. Del McGee's heard the slander. All right.
Yeah.
That dude heard y'all talking on the message board, and he's coming with a vengeance in 2023. Like I said, pulling off the flip of Bowens. People have underrated the Dwight Phillips pickup since it happened, just because he's a quiet guy and he doesn't do a ton of media and he didn't really take a lot of visits, and he wasn't a guy who was just playing the game. But that's a special cat, man. I mean, can fly when it comes to the field. So you got a game breaker in him, and Bowens is a total package as well.
And one thing I want to add here too is I saw some social media comments about this. The whole Phillips pickup, right? No, I don't necessarily see him as like, oh yeah, Georgia's going to move him to slot receiver. I don't see that. But jet sweeps, lining them up on the wing, those little fake handoff end around type deals, those decoy quick screen, bubble screen, all of that is where he kind of fits in. I don't necessarily see him as a slot receiver. Chauncey Bowens is kind of more your grinder, pounder, every down back. And I will say, in terms of Nate Frazier, let's say Georgia, who, they had him on campus this weekend too for an unofficial visit, and we've got some intel on that over at DawgsHQ if you want to come over. But let's say Georgia does get him. I fully believe that Georgia has been very upfront and honest, Del McGee especially, with Chauncey Bowens, in that, hey, listen, we're going to go for one more back in this class. I don't think you'll be shocked. Now, will, over the course of the process, another team be able to hammer that point home if they're able to talk to him consistently and say, hey, they're bringing in 3 backs. You want to be the lead back in our class, or do you want to be one of 3 in another class? That might get to him down the road. But as of right now, this is kind of like, detention. And the dude's let me have those chips off the corner of your desk type thing. Like Georgia just kind of took them off of them real quick and said, hey, we're going to take that guy from you. We know you want –
give me that.
Yeah. Those Doritos, I know you were looking forward to them.
But you're getting those flaming hot Cheetos shook out on the notebook paper, brother. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh man, that's a high school teaching reference. Oh man,
somehow they get just stuck everywhere, like in your notes, in your backpack. It's insane how those little crumbs find their ways everywhere. I know y'all probably seen this clip, but I'm going to play it. If you haven't, this is Chauncey committing with all of his dog buddies right here on this big visit that we'll get to in a moment.
Oh, I thought we had some sound.
For the
Can you not
podcast
hear it?
folks at home,
I cannot hear it. No.
All right. Well,
But I will say this:
Screw me.
Nycar, credit to Nycar on posting that. Unlike some folks, we're not going to post that like it's our own.
no, we weren't there. We weren't there filming it. That wasn't Palmer.
I wish we could. I wish we could have been. I would have taken the opportunity.
We'd have some good. Hey, listen, we'd have some good stuff for you over at Dawgs.
Was Nycar in town? I mean,
No, he was not. I confirmed with him.
Yeah,
that he was not.
Yeah,
I was
but
trying to
somebody
figure
sent
that
it to
one
him, and that's how it got
He
to
was
us.
there last weekend, but that clearly got sent to him. So
Somebody sent it to Nycar with express written consent of Major League Baseball.
So the clip in question is Chauncey Bowen standing in an all-white Georgia uniform, holding a microphone like he's about to throw down a freestyle or something. But Ryan Puglisi and everyone that was on this visit, it looks like KJ Bolden in there, I believe. Chauncey just says, "Hey, I'm 100% committed," and there's a bunch of barking, a bunch of dancing, and a bunch of celebrations. So
A bunch
I don't
of
know if you
players
want to read
wearing
too much into it,
uniforms.
but if you want to look at who is celebrating around him, who may or may not already be publicly committed, there are a lot of happy campers in that video. So
Yeah, I mean, if
look
you're
it up.
if you're the type of person that has the Georgia plane bookmarked on your desktop, then you'll probably also look closely enough at that video and see kind of who's celebrating and try to read a lot into that. Another thing you'll see in that video is a lot of uniforms you'll never, especially combinations of uniforms, you'll never see on Saturday for whatever reason. You'll just
red
never
pants,
see.
hell no. Black pants, no way.
Hey
Is that
man,
confirmed? Have we confirmed that?
who knows? Who knows?
Right,
I'm holding on.
I
I'm holding
would
on.
like to see.
Nah.
I know we never will. I would like to see those uniforms that Georgia started the 2020 season with again at some point.
oh, those
I
were
like
sick.
those a lot.
I love
I mean,
those. I love them.
even if you wanted to just go with the normal white jersey and the red pants that they're wearing, it gives hints of what they wore, not the traditional throwback, but the same concept.
We got a question over here, Ro. I've got a thought on it, but I'll throw it to you too. Dwight Phillips comparison.
You say
Tomahawk Dog says James Cook, but faster.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
I thought about Keith too.
Yeah, Keith Marshall probably. I mean, Keith Marshall's a big cat though. And Keith Marshall was a big dude, and the sad thing about Keith Marshall is, man, before he got hurt, I don't know if folks remember in that the 2013 seasons when he got hurt, he had a touchdown against Clemson in game 1 where he hit a cat at the 5 and just carried him into the end zone, like 5 yards into the end zone. Keith was a strong back. He didn't have the best balance in the world, but he was a big play waiting to happen. And that injury kind of took him out. But he did have really good hands. He adjusted really well to the ball in the air. I don't know. I think Dwight. I think the James Cook deal is probably. I think he may also end up being a little bit bigger than James Cook. That was something that kind of plagued him, is he just could never do like his brother. He could never kind of fill out and get up to about 205, 210 pounds. There was a couple seasons there where folks. I had somebody tell me this about a year ago. There were a couple seasons there where James Cook, a freshman sophomore, was playing at under 180 pounds.
Listed at 181 coming in.
Yeah. And there were, I think he played at like 175, 176, I don't know, chicken nuggets here, a pub sub there. Since he's from Florida, he may have been a little heavier or lighter than that at some point, but 175 pounds in the SEC, everybody's like, well, why does James Cook not getting the ball more? Well, first of all, he was deemed up for those first couple years. Second of all, he was 175 pounds.
Yeah, you could get killed.
So then the question is, do we think Dwight Phillips is going to come in bigger than that? Because he's currently listed at 5'11", 167.
Hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll probably. My guess would be that he would start his career at a similar weight as James Cook.
But
Cook now listed at 190 for what.
But you're talking about a guy who significantly more explosive just in terms of like give him a crease and let him go. Probably a gadget guy really early in his career for year one.
Good returner. That would be a cool returner to watch.
Yeah. If you really want to know a guy that I'd compare him to, maybe Mecole Hardman.
Oh, I like that.
Just not necessarily from a pure wide receiver standpoint, slot receiver, but in terms of the gadget stuff that Mecole did, maybe that.
Yep.
Mecole listed at 5'10", 187.
This kid's a savant with the fire.
Yeah, all it takes is Google.
That first syllable rolled out your mouth, and he had it, dude.
Yeah.
So obviously Bowen's stealing the show, but a lot of other things going on this weekend. Jaden Riddell there, Ryan Puglisi, holding your breath that they don't, get injured.
I would
absolutely
shred an ACL on the way down from that.
Did you see the Caleb Odom video from Florida?
I did.
Oh boy, that
looked like Jake Rowe. That looked like Jake Rowe bursting out of some double doors.
Oh God, it's torn again. I know it.
I told you that ACL was gone.
Look at this guy.
Oh my God!
I told you, Del McGee heard your slander, man. Del McGee is ready to come back with it. I mean,
if you guys haven't seen Silo on Apple TV, Del McGee's looking like some Common right there. He's looking
he's got the Common beard.
Got some Common vibes right there.
Nitro Tuggle,
dude,
still the best name in any recruiting class ever.
A guy who's I think he's gonna finish well above the.
I tell you what, man, I was talking to somebody this weekend, and I'm sure it's one of these things I should probably save and talk about on the board, but hell, it's my first show back, so I'll go ahead and say it. I talked to some guys on the board. I talked to some guys this week, and who told me that they think Nitro Tuggle. Georgia's after some 5-star dudes, obviously. Ryan Wingo, Mike Matthews. They think Nitro Tuggle is just as good or better than those guys. Now, I don't think that they're not going to put him in the J.J. Smith category or the Hudson kid from Texas or even the kid from Phoenix City, the Ryan
Cam Coleman.
Yeah, Cam Coleman. But in terms of the other guys, he is right there as far as they're concerned.
I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in that.
With the likes of Wingo and
I think his junior tape was as good as Tyler Williams' junior tape. And I think he's going to refine his game at IMG this season, and it's going to be even better.
How about this dude, Mike Matthews from Parkview? One of those cursed Gwinnett County football players.
Don't feel good. Still don't feel good. I think Georgia is probably in a better spot coming off of this trip, but I still think you're looking at USC. You're looking at Tennessee probably more heavily for Mike Matthews. It just kind of is what it is with him. I think that Georgia's not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. And listen, they would welcome him with open arms. I think he's a special talent. I think that he's in that tier where we're talking about with guys like JJ and Mike Hudson. But I've yet to hear anything, and that doesn't mean that I won't between the next time this show's on the air or even tomorrow morning and putting out some notes that will change that. I just really haven't gotten a feel that Georgia's the team to beat for Mike Matthews at all.
And when I said what I said a minute ago about Nitro Tuggle, that was not like to diminish anything about Ryan Wingo, who I think is tremendously talented, just really raw, and Mike Matthews, who is a big-time basketball player and is probably he's a freak athlete. That's just how much they think of Nitro Tuggle. I mean, he's a big time player, and people, Doc Strange, our guy on the board who has been around these message board streets for a long, long time. He had a really good point when Nitro Tuggle committed. He's from South Bend, Indiana, and he said it's the kind of dude that signs with Purdue and has 1,700 yards receiving as a sophomore. Yes. That's the kind of guy that and we've seen it happen before. Some of those like Minnesota with Rashad Bateman. I mean, obviously he came from out of Georgia's backyard, and that was a miss eval there. But Nitro Tuggle is one of the steals of this class to me, and we'll see if I'm right, because we don't have to wait till he gets to college. We'll find out real quick at IMG, because if he just gets shut down there, then we're probably looking at a guy that I was wrong on, and it won't be the first.
Yeah, he's going to be going against Ellis Robinson down there, so you're going to learn a lot about the dude. And then also, too, what I say to people is, everybody's star watching in this class. this is a super deep wide receiver class in 2024. So I love the three guys Georgia has committed. Nye Carr gets written off a lot as well, but is a really, really talented player. And I've been told by everybody who's had any input on him that that Sakovi White is a guy Georgia loves, man.
Yeah, this is Sakovi White, Mike Matthews, and Nitro in this picture here.
Sakovi White's buying the beer.
I don't know. Terry Tuggle might take the beer if he's wearing that thing when he goes in. That's a need.
Well, on the topic of underrated receivers, and this is somebody that included Georgia in their list of top schools, and there's been some talk about him on the board. Amari Jefferson. You can't convince me that there's 45 receivers in the country better than him.
Tremendous player. I love Amari Jefferson. And listen, Alabama does too. Tennessee does as well. Georgia does also. He's a fantastic player. And I think a guy Georgia, again, would welcome pretty early on. And also, too, we got pulled up on the screen right here. Let's not forget, Georgia likes to lean toward those tight ends basically as receivers in a lot of cases. Jaden Riddell and Colton Heinrich, two guys that they feel can absolutely get it done at that position as well.
Yeah, Todd Hartley right here is about to
lurking.
Tell you to sleep with the fishes if he doesn't get his money.
He's very organized.
Before we move on to the tight ends, though, with all this buzz we've had around these receivers that Georgia will or won't get, it seems like, to me anyway, this receiving class in 2024 could be the class of receivers that truly does, whether it's this year or next year or 2 years from now, puts Georgia on the map as a school that can actually do something with really talented wide receivers when they get on campus. Because year in and year out, you see guys pick USC, like you said, Roos, when it comes to Mike Matthews or Ohio State. It's just like, you just kind of, it's an afterthought. Georgia's an afterthought because USC and Ohio State are just going to get the better receivers. But I wonder if, Nitro Tuggle, Nye Carr, and these dudes can't prove to everybody in college football the Dogs can play that game too.
I'll go a step further, and I think it could be the class of 23 and this receiver room that they've got, that'll be taking the field this fall. I mean, and those guys may not be major contributors in year one, but, the group of Tyler Williams, Anthony Evans, and Yazid Haynes, I mean, a lot of good buzz about those guys as freshmen and looked impressive when we were able to see them. And Roos, I know you're high on them. And, so I think that yes, you're right, Wes. This class of 24, they've got some really good receivers in that group. And, again, Sakovi White is the lowest rated of them, but he's somebody that we hear a lot of buzz about. Nitro Tuggle that we've talked about, and Nye Carr, borderline, high 4, borderline 5-star kind of player. That class of 23 isn't a bunch of slouches either.
No, and I think too, what you have to consider here is, there are guys out there, and I'm not naming names because I think that they're doing what's in their best interest, but there are guys out there that are going to want touches. There are guys out there who are going to want numbers, and they're going to want stats, and they're going to do that. Georgia's not probably the place that's going to have 2 1,000-yard receivers in a season, like I believe Washington is returning this season.
Georgia hasn't had one since
Terrence Edwards did it, and that was the lone one in program history. Georgia spreads the ball out a lot. A lot of guys get touches in this offense, and so if that's what you're thinking and that's what you're concerned about, then it makes sense to go somewhere else. And I've made this point as well. If you're going to play for a wide receiver coach, Brian Hartline is the dude right now. I mean, it's been proven time and time again. The numbers are there. The draft pick is there. I mean, it continues to be the case. It's like linebackers coming to play for Glenn Schumann. Sorry, guys, but you can't get it at every single position. What you have with Georgia, though, I think, in Brian McClennan's first class is a tremendous set, like Palmer mentioned. And then in 2024, you're building an elite class, in my opinion, as well. Like I said, I think Tuggle's due for a bump. I think Nye Carr is going to get a bump. or at least stay where he is, which is a top 100 player. And then you've got another guy in Sokovie White who they really like. So, you go out and add another piece to this. I think that they're tracking right under Brian McClendon, who's only had a year to show what he can do in Athens.
I'm going to scroll through these really quick. Any thoughts on Fletcher Westphal or Ethan Callaway before we get to this dude right here?
I haven't heard on Callaway just yet, but I know that that's a guy Georgia likes a lot and would be a huge pull for them, given that he's in North Carolina, close by. I think it's a tremendous player on the offensive line. Westfall's a guy that really has my attention as well. I think that, Georgia, Clemson, he's got an official visit said to Arkansas in there. But he's a kind of a cage guy, really polished in his interviews. His family's done a great job of handling media, and I commend them for that. But, Georgia, I think, has positioned themselves well with probably both of these guys. I mean, Callaway, as far as I'm aware, I don't think I'm missing another visit. Came to Athens one time, and on the back of it set the official visit. So that's always a great sign when that happens.
Yeah, great sign. And Tomahawk Dog asking if UGA is doing a 3D show in recruiting. I think those glasses.
You just get to watch the Stone Mountain Laser Show.
That's right. That midnight train to Georgia.
Those are two just prototype tackles too. I mean, both of them are right around 6'7", 6. I think Westphal maybe even closer to 6'8". Mm-hmm. I mean, just freak show big dudes. One thing I want to add on the receiver thing, since Terrence Edwards, bad luck has also factored into Georgia's situation. AJ Green misses 4 games with 848 yards receiving. AJ Green misses 3 games the year before that with a separated shoulder. With 800.
And AJ Green played on Mark Richt's worst team ever.
Yeah. And then Malcolm Mitchell, getting hurt in 2013, celebrating a touchdown with Todd Gurley. You started the previous season at cornerback because Georgia was short on cornerbacks. That wasn't bad luck, roster issues, whatever. And then, he couldn't stay healthy after that. I mean, he was the guy that had the potential to do those types of things. I mean, you've seen it over George Pickens in the season that we all thought he was going to have there in 2021. Tears his ACL during preseason or during spring practice. So, I mean, there's also been some poor luck in there. But at the end of the day, it may give a Tennessee fan a bragging right or two on Twitter. But at the end of the day, also George Pickens got drafted higher than Jalen Hyatt or Cedric Tillman, and Georgia's got 2 national championships.
Well, and I've told people this too, that people say, how can Georgia continue to kind of fall with this thing, like this whole idea of, being recruited against? Georgia has been for the last 10 to 15 years pointing to AJ Green as the heralded guy at the wide receiver spot when he was in college, then when he went to the pros. All right. Georgia does not have another guy who's gone to the pros and produced in the way that AJ Green has. So they've been riding on the AJ Green thing for like 15 years. George Pickens has a chance to change that narrative, as do some of these other guys, I think, coming along. Listen, what a story it's going to be. And I might save that for later, but I won't actually. Ladd McConkey might be one of those dudes who's able to kind of change that narrative up, man. I mean, go a little higher in the draft than people think that he can. Go out and produce. That's all he's done throughout his career. Georgia, I think right now is in the process of reshaping the wide receiver room, but the production hasn't been there just yet. They need more time for those seeds to grow.
You missed the Ladd show on Wednesday.
Yeah, we had a big Ladd show on Wednesday. Palmer and I rocked it. Here's the main event from the weekend. KJ Bolden, Jalen Hayward, and Edric Houston. KJ Bolden seems like he came out of this really enjoying his latest trip to Athens.
Yeah, get over to DawgsHQ and check it out. I'm not going to give all that up.
Yeah, we can't give that away. I'm just letting everyone know.
What I will say is, since it's in the headline, his father rated it an A+ visit to Chad Simmons. So that's huge. And Bolden, one of those, a freaking dude, man. A guy Georgia has wanted this whole time. They love him. And I feel really good about where they stand right now.
Jalen Hayward
in with Georgia, Florida and Miami are going to continue to push, and that's home state for him. So I get it. He's going to feel that throughout this thing, but I like where Georgia is with him right now. He's a guy who seems like he's where he wants to be.
And then the other Buford guy, Edric Houston, I think it hasn't been much of a secret on this show. Georgia may be on the outside looking in there.
That's how I feel. Ohio State, I feel like, is the team to beat right there. Houston, one of those guys that seems like he wants to get out of state, but hey, I mean, it is what it is. You're not going to land them all. And I don't think Georgia hurt itself. I just didn't hear anything that made me think that, I should rethink the Ohio State pick.
Palmer, great job getting all these picks together and getting all the captions lined up. This photo of Georgia commits right here that were in town just on this visit alone. It's pretty scary for a lot of other teams. Colton Heinrich, Jalen Hayward, Jaden Riddell, Malachi Tolliver, Ryan Puglisi, Nitro Tuggle, Sokovie White, and the newest one, Chauncey Bowens. Yeah.
Look at Hayward there. I mean, just like, do you know who we are? Kind of got that look about him,
Why aren't you here
Ryan
yet?
Puglisi also cool as a cucumber, man.
Yeah, he looks like, let me pull him back up here.
Nonplussed is the word I would go with.
He's like, all right, when are we going to eat at Bones? Come on. Tired of all these photos.
What cracks me up is when these guys are changing outfits completely. Because I believe, scroll up a little bit, and Jalen Hayward is wearing red uniform.
Oh yeah, no, they're all in different stuff.
Yeah. So
costume change. Nothing wrong with a costume change. Hey, listen, soak in the red uni while you got, or soak in these uni combos while you got it, man. I mean, like Rose said, you're never gonna get to do it again. So
nope.
All you get is
who's that cat second from the left up top?
That's Jalen Hayward.
Yeah, man. Tell you what,
man. He knows what's up.
Yeah, he does.
I like Nitro. I like what one of the things I like about Nitro Tuggle is I feel like I very rarely in photos see his face. Like he's always got his hand in front of his face. He was wearing the ski mask in one of them. Like he's kind of got this like mysterious aura about him. Which
he's got some mystique.
And his name's Nitro Tuggle, so I mean it's like he's got some great marketing going on.
Colton Heinrich looks like every
really
villain
AJ
from
Green?
An arcade shooter. In the
What?
1980s.
Is it really AJ Green? Is he just covering up his face enough that we can't tell who he really is?
Yeah.
Might be AJ. Never know.
It could be Montego Powers.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if have you guys ever heard the legend of Montego Powers?
No.
You should look it up. It's a one year, dude, people bid it hook, line, and sinker back in the old days of the dog vent. I'm gonna give them a little advertisement here. Back in Steve Patterson's dog vent, it came up one day on signing day. Montego Powers is still out there. I think he's gonna mail in his who is Montego Powers? And it got around and it took off a little bit. And I mean, I'd say probably about an hour or so it was serious. And then folks realized that, oh man, this guy didn't even have a profile. But honestly, back in those days,
there was dudes like that.
Yeah, dude, I remember Geno Atkins, all right, one of the greatest three techs in NFL history, probably an NFL Hall of Famer. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody, as far as recruiting sites, knew who he was 10, 14, maybe 3 weeks before National Signing Day at a St. Thomas. It's not like he played in some underground high school. He played at St. Thomas Aquinas, all right, the same high school that Marcus Rosenby Jack Saint played at.
I did not know that about Gina.
Yeah. So, I mean, and they had a load of prospects. But, Georgia was looking for defensive linemen, and I think Georgia and Auburn and maybe another couple of schools got in there very late, and they got him, but he didn't have a profile. He wasn't on anybody's radar. I mean, that's just kind of how that one went. So, back in those days, that could happen. But, yeah, the Montego Powers thing lasted maybe an hour or two on National Signing Day or the night before National Signing Day or something like that. It was pretty fun.
Speaking of being legendary,
on the radar, I wonder if it could work today. Something tells me that someone would still fall for it.
Not a chance.
Breaking T is always working for us. You have so many options, and I tell y'all time and time again, and I'm yet to hear from anyone that's actually gotten one of these shirts other than Jake Rowe, but I know y'all are out there. So the next time you get a new Georgia shirt, make sure it's from Breaking T and send us a picture of what you got from Breaking T, so we can tell the world about it and let people know that these these T-shirts rock, man. This
that
one sold out quick.
That mailman shirt over to the right of that one. My buddy, my good friend Chris Irvin, and listener of the podcast, and it doesn't watch the live show, but he listens to the podcast when it comes out. He was wearing that one this week. So while we were at the beach. So
if it's anything like my Masters polo, I'll be wearing it on the Georgia show in 2025. So,
all right,
you guys want to Venmo me
whenever you can get it. Never too late.
Hey, did they get rid of the Georgia Dogs shirts or Philly Dogs shirts? I didn't see those at the top. Did we get one of a kind shirts?
Don't wear them.
That must have been a limited time deal.
Oh wow. We may be getting sued.
We've got Breaking Tees back. Every way, but financially, of course. You're on your own financially, but we will moral support out the wazoo.
We love Breaking Tea, so go.
We do.
Go
we
get
love
you
those guys.
All right, y'all. This Florida Gators Netflix documentary, I can't wait to watch it. I know there's going to be some clips in there at Georgia's expense, just because Florida was a bulldozer and Georgia just happened to be in the way. But I'm wondering here, you know, everyone's getting the Netflix treatment, the documentary treatment. What's the Georgia storyline that y'all would love to see get that deep dive, whether it's a hour and a half or maybe like a 4 or 5 episode thing? But you can't say Stetson Bennett because that's obvious. That's low-hanging fruit. And it's everyone knows about it. It's a little bit tired. Is there a story out there that y'all would love to see, whether from way back in the day or modern day times? I'll get us started. I think the Buttsmeer or the Wally Butts and Bear Bryant point shaving scandal deserves to be told. That's something that people don't really talk about much. But if it happened today, think about how crazy everyone went with the Alabama baseball gambling scandal. If that happened today, it would be bonkers, man. People would lose their minds. It would be front page news. It would be on SportsCenter every single day. But no one hardly talks about it anymore. And no one really knows what happened still. So I'd love to see that one.
Was it the whole crux of that? Wasn't it that Wally Butts basically called or gave Bear Bryant some? I thought there was. I didn't know it was point shaving. I thought there was like he gave him a playbook or something.
Yeah, he told him like the plays that they were going to run, and a newspaper reporter allegedly heard the whole thing happen.
Oh, okay.
Happened to overhear it.
This is why we need the documentary, so that we can learn about it.
Been lost to the sand.
Jason Butt told me about this years ago, and I think Dave McMahon may have been the one to tell him. So, yeah, that would be a good one. I would go with, and it's not really a long term thing like that, but the ins and outs of the Todd Gurley thing, and kind of like. Because of the way I've heard people be like, I've heard people, and people kind of close to the situation, right? I've heard people say, well, Georgia completely mishandled that. And then I've heard other people close to the situation say they had us by the gonads, that they had us and they had it on video, and that's the way that was. And I would love to know kind of the ins and outs of that, because it was a Florida fan from up in Rome, Georgia, who kind of made the whole thing happen. And, I think, probably maybe a little limited series, a little 4 30-minute episodes type deal. That could wet the beak for me.
I was going to say, in a recent sense, I think the story of Jordan Davis is a really compelling one, because he kind of went from like an unknown dude, lightly recruited, to like one of the most beloved sons of Athens. I mean, doing the band thing and, just was a huge part of it. And everybody loved him. But also, too, I would really love to see one on the 08 team, the 07 team. I'm sorry, the Sugar Bowl team. To see those guys and to hear their thoughts about, especially like if the playoff had existed at that time. Good Lord, man. That was a team that was catching fire at the right time and just had some stumbles, man. And but some tremendous talent on that team, some guys who went on to have fantastic careers. I'd love to see a little something with those guys. I think that they could provide some really cool insight into what that year was. And, I'd love to hear him talk about taking the aggression out on Hawaii.
I want a documentary on the man, the myth, the legend, Claude Felton.
Good pick.
He would have to sign off on that, and I think that would be pretty hard.
Yeah, you know what the name of it would be, right? You know,
documentary.
Last question.
Yeah.
Last question.
The Claude Felton
story.
No live streaming. Yep. No live streaming.
That documentary would take. I mean, there would be as many episodes as there were in Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I think you could probably also make a pretty good one on Ron Corson.
I mean, I think he's healed more ACLs for. I mean, Dr. James Andrews gets all the buzz, but Ron Corson's put some dogs back on the field that I never thought I'd see contribute the way they did. Zamir White, tearing two of them. I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind. But
I'll tell you the one that might be the most entertaining, though, is if they did a documentary on John Fabris. Because you want to talk about an insane person, okay? Listen, I thought he did a fantastic job with Georgia's edge rushers while he was there. He recruited A.J. Green. He wasn't a big-time recruiter. Listen, I stood up on a stump one time while I was in school at Georgia and tried to peer up over the fence and watch a little practice one time, and he saw my ample forehead above that fence, and he came at me like a screaming banshee. I mean, it was just full speed, cursing me, saying, I think he just said them all in a row. I had them memorized.
He did the George Carlin stand-up routine.
Yeah, bro. I mean, just came at me so fast. And I was like, man, this old man covered some ground quick. But yeah, he was something else.
So what you're telling me is Miami is not the first time you've been run away from a Georgia football practice?
Not even close.
Thomas Davis would be a compelling story as well. Lightly recruited guy who went on to have a Hall of Fame NFL career.
Yeah, you could do a bunch of one-off, like one-people ones, like David Pollock would be another one. The whole David Pollock deal where, recruited as a fullback. And, a lot of folks don't realize, Pollock was moved from defensive tackle to defensive end.
You could
from year one to year two.
You could read that in The Road to Georgia, incredible twists and improbable turns on
the chapter on Pollock is pretty good.
Not very recently.
You should have interviewed me for that, and I could have told you my David Pollock story about going on the recruiting trip for the Tennessee game and how I got up there and I was like, Georgia's recruiting this guy? They're going nowhere.
David Pollock gave me the greatest quote ever for that one, which he was like, yeah, nobody was looking at me yet because my nuts hadn't dropped.
I think he said I was looking around the locker room. I didn't even have hair on my balls.
Did you know him and
Fabris, man? He was like 6'5", but probably weighed about 160 pounds. He looked like Clint Eastwood, but like stretched out like a Stretch Armstrong. He was terrifying. And he had like these spindly arms and legs, but moved around almost like a mythical creature, man. He was a scary dude.
Man.
The Slender Man, yes.
Yeah, that's it. And I went to a camp, just like a kids Mark Richt camp, not like you're a recruit we care about camp. And he was still cussing at all these kids, man. And they were like 12 and 13 years old. Their mom and dads just paid him to go there and get an autographed T-shirt. And he's just dropping F-bombs at him. But I will say, I went to the Waffle House that used to be at 5 Points, R.I.P.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
And I saw him getting
with pretty good wings, though.
Get out of here,
Palmer.
God,
slander, man. That Waffle House never deserved to leave.
It was the best Waffle House in Athens.
It's a good thing that there wasn't a Waffle House there, because I would have abused that living just less than half a mile away.
You got that weird one over there by the Shell.
I know, but I'm saying while I was in school,
which is the less than superior Waffle House.
You live closer to the one over by Shell now than you would have lived to that one.
I know, but I wasn't underage.
And I promise you that one on that one was much cleaner.
We're getting real close to Docs and Palmer here.
You're in trouble, man.
Hey, did
Anyway,
y'all know
to bring
David
the story
and
home,
David
I
Green
saw
were good
John
friends?
Fabris getting
High
breakfast with his granddaughter one morning when I was in college, and it was like the most tender moment, and he was being so sweet with her, and I was like, man, that's a totally different side of that guy that
Little girl, you are hugging a madman.
you have no idea. All right. I'm going to get to some Dogs Q&A because I promised we would do it. Show's running a little bit long, but it was a huge recruiting weekend, so it's justified.
Jake
I
Rose
believe.
well rested. We don't need to worry about him tonight.
We're going to run through these really quick. Whoever wants to get to it, get to it. Just
when
one
you got a
person needs to
4-year-old and an
answer.
8-year-old, vacation's just a different kind of work.
Yeah.
A lot more manual labor. I've carried stuff to and from the beach this week, including a gallon jug.
I've been carrying Palmer all week, man. Come on.
Palmer's been carrying us. I don't know what you're talking about. Fletcher Proctor asks, have there been any position changes this offseason that we should be aware of?
Not that I know of.
Jalen Walker sticking at inside linebacker.
Yeah, basically, yeah, from outside to inside. That's probably one of the more notable deals.
And obviously, if you watched spring practice and kept up with that, Bullard moving from star to safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another one. Mike Bobo from analyst to offensive coordinator.
There you go.
Yeah.
In case you didn't hear.
Mark Mathis says Jalen Carter could change offensive game plans by himself. How does Georgia mitigate the loss of such a big disruptor? Mitigate.
Well chosen word.
Well,
I'm gonna say by throwing bodies at it, and fresh bodies and deep bodies. You got a number of guys who are able to fill in that role, and I think you're going to rotate them out situationally. So, in my opinion, that's how you plan for replacing Jalen Carter. But the reality is there is no replacing Jalen Carter. I'm sorry.
Give him weapons.
Yep.
Yeah.
Michael Williams.
Give him Bowie knives. Yeah. No, Palmer's got a good point, though. Jalen Carter was a pressure point, and I don't think you necessarily have to have a pressure point at defensive tackle. They didn't have that when they had Roquan Smith, and Roquan Smith was kind of the straw that stirred the drink there too. He was the pressure point because you're like, man, if we don't get a hat on this guy, he's going to wreck the game. Now, Jalen Carter kind of played close enough to the football that you were like, all right, well, we may have to put 2 hats on this guy to keep him from controlling the game. I think Michael Williams is a guy that can do it. I think Nazir Stackhouse is a guy that can kind of be that pressure point. I also think Javon Bullard, if Georgia uses him the way they use Chris Smith, which is kind of up in the box, let him blitz, let him move around, let him jump routes, I think Javon Bullard can be that type of player. And obviously, Georgia's got some studs at inside linebacker. So I think it's kind of maybe a little bit of a moving target. And in no way do I expect it to be better than Jalen Carter, but I think Georgia can kind of switch it up and not necessarily, not that they do this anyway, it's more of a team defense anyway, but they can move that kind of pressure point position around and force teams to kind of adjust on the fly. Not knowing where the pressure is going to come from or where they're going to try to attack you, because they can create so many different mismatches rather than relying on 88 versus somebody who can't block them.
Yep.
All right. Last one here. Bubby Dean says, will the Dogs finally get to College Station when the 24 schedule is released this week? We talked about that last week. I'm going to say yes. Do the Dogs get Texas or Oklahoma in 24? I will say yes to that too, but I'm going to guess that I'm going to say Texas. I'm still saying Texas. And then the future home and homes with UCLA, Florida State, Ohio State on the chopping block? I think if I've learned anything about scheduling down the road when it comes to college football is that none of these things really matter because they are all on the chopping block at any given moment, let alone when college football is expanding in the craziest way it ever has.
I
Quick dog
say,
stocks. I'm going to say stock up on Jim Nantz. Not a Dogs thing, but that call at the Canadian Open today was awesome.
Didn't see it.
72-foot eagle putt from a Canadian man to win the Canadian Open.
And then Adam Hadwin tries to come spray him and gets speared. Another golfer gets tackled by security trying to celebrate. So
well, welcome to the new PGA Tour.
Live. What in the world?
I'll go stock up on Georgia's graphics team, and I've really enjoyed. I think, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a new thing, or relatively new, but their ability to make videos for recruits, the official visit videos, the announcement of those that they're coming beforehand. Those have been a good touch to June and what's pretty slow time, on the team side of things, but chaotic on the recruiting side. That's been a good touch and a great way to keep up with who's going to be in town.
Stock up on me having to go next because Jake Rose dropped out of the feed. So I'm going to say, I mentioned this earlier in the show, and I'm going to go back to it. Stock up on Del McGee. I think that Del McGee is riding a wave right now. Dwight Phillips, like I said, not discussed often enough. You flip one of Florida's key commits, and I don't think you can underrate that, man. I mean, you steal a guy that one of your rivals loved and used as a cornerstone for their class. You're able to swoop in. You loved him too, and they're able to take him. So, and you're in it with Nate Frazier in a huge way, coming off of an unofficial visit with official visits to come. He makes time for the Dogs, and I don't think you can underrate that one. So I'm saying stock up on Del McGee, man. He's got a lot of hell lately on the message boards. People saying, has he lost it? I think that Del McGee's a dude.
All right, listen.
You have
stock
problems.
up. I'm about to promote something, and I'm only going to promote it because it has absolutely amazed me. A man by the name of Dan Duffy. I don't know if he reached out to any of you guys about this. But he reached out to me because he is the owner of a website called The Art of I'm sorry, not The Art of Words, artofwords.com, ART of words.com. And he's at Real Art of Words on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that stuff. He sent me a print of this right here. And you can't really Yeah. He did this with handwritten words and numbers.
Oh my God.
This whole thing is just handwritten words and numbers. Down here is the score of the Peach Bowl, the national championship game, the date. It is the date and opponent and score of every Georgia with all 868 wins since 1892, and he made that with it. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. If you want to go check it out, order a print, whatever. But Dan reached out to me and asked if I wanted to see a print of it. And I'm like, absolutely. And I got it. And I was like, I'm just going to do this on the Georgia show because I think this is the best place to do it. So you guys go check it out. He created it in April of 2023. I cannot imagine how long that took. I can't handwrite a grocery list without getting a cramp.
It gives me anxiety, man.
Yeah, it does me too. It gives me anxiety to know somebody out there is just that much more talented at me than me at anything. And
I've accepted that in my life.
Yeah,
I can't believe someone's still handwriting.
It gives me
anything.
anxiety because it just reminds me I have zero, except for just running my mouth and drinking a lot of beverages. But incredible, Daniel Duffy, you are a big timer. And again, the website is artofwords.com. Go check it out.
Low Elo Joe, you've been putting some good comments in here, but don't you dare come in here and trample all over the Art of Words accomplishment by saying that ChatGPT could do it in a few seconds.
Yeah, ChatGPT ain't going to handwrite that shit for you. I'll tell you that.
ChatGPT can't bark like the dogs.
Bruce is using bark after dark language on the Georgia show.
That's fine. It's all good. Bark After Dark, 9 p.m. on Mondays. The Georgia show.
On hold. On hold.
Not in the month of June, baby. We're off.
Yeah, we're on hold for June.
Okay.
Sometimes,
9 p.m. on Mondays in July. And the Georgia show, 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday and Sunday. Y'all hit like and subscribe and get on over to DawgsHQ.com. If you haven't done it already, you should have your tail between your legs. $1, what is the deal? 50% off for 6 months and $1 for 3 months. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Half off, 50% off for a year, 3 months for $1.
I wanted to hold something.
Come on over. We're living to the finish.
Insane content and access and scoop and all that stuff. Get on over to DawgsHQ.com. Y'all have a great week. We'll see you Wednesday.